A2Pcast for the week of October 9th, 2013, the Fetch Me My Prozac edition. I am Mike Rifenbury, the editor of Alive to Play. With me is Josh Hartman and Mike Schupsky. I don't know what your government is doing, wherever you're listening to this from, but ours is currently shut down, which is awesome. And so this week we're going to be talking about Grand Theft Auto Online, the past, present, and future of Star Wars games, and the Breaking Bad finale, which happened about 2 weeks ago now. So Grand Theft Auto Online, the launch has been plagued with issues. Mike Schupsky, what have your experiences been with it so far?
Well, right off the bat, it took me 5 tries to get into the actual game itself. This has been the big problem that a lot of people have had, but like just getting started is like the main issue. And
this has been an issue for like a lot of big releases recently too. Like, so you have like Diablo 3, SimCity, now Grand Theft Auto, like everything that relies on like the cloud.
Yeah,
we've been seeing
persistent online worlds. Yeah, like it's a troubling pattern in terms of like major games having these almost like all having major issues in terms of like the initial out of the gate reception of the game. It's like, yeah, but I mean, me personally, like, yeah, I had, let's see, like, I tried, yeah, I restarted the game like 5 times and I just could not get into the first mission. It was just my character standing around
the car,
standing in the parking lot,
right.
And then like other characters would get in the parking lot and we'd all just kind of do this weird shuffle. And yeah, it was frustrating. Yeah, it's really, I don't know, troubling. It would be troubling and broken would be an appropriate word.
Right, and it makes you wonder, with the reliance on the cloud in the next gen cycle, are we putting too much faith in it? Or are developers or console manufacturers putting too much faith in developers' ability to utilize the cloud effectively?
I just hope it's like it's growing pains, because like
right.
these are the first forays into major persistent world games.
At least on consoles.
At least on I should stipulate that. At least on consoles. So
though the big issues with Diablo and SimCity were all on PC.
This is true. But I mean, specifically for SimCity and GTA, like these are series that like typically have been offline experiences. So these companies, I guess, don't have much experience in making major release online games, like GTA Online and SimCity have just been released. So yeah, I think mostly it's just growing pains and figuring out how to make this work specifically.
Yeah, I want to read something that Keza McDonald, the reviewer of Grand Theft Auto and Grand Theft Auto Online for IGN, wrote about it. She says, playing GTA Online right now involves an eye-watering level of risk. Do not play this game right now unless you're okay with the possibility of losing everything you've done because of an accident with the cloud servers. It really stings. I'm pretty furious. This is what public betas are for. Currently, I'm not sure GTA Online even qualifies as a beta. It feels more like alpha code. This is a potentially incredible game with an extraordinary level of ambition, but for it to launch in this state undermines all of that. Needless to say, this review in progress will be suspended until I get my character back, if I ever do. Josh, how do you feel about that?
Seems pretty spot on. It's hard to review a game if you can't play that game, and I have actually taken that advice. I haven't had that many problems with GTA Online once I got in. I mean, it took a long while to actually load the airport scene, but once I got my character to land at the airport and talk to Lamar, my race went fine, and I've been mostly okay going through things as they are now. You know, getting in and out of games, sometimes a little troubling, but nothing really bad has happened to me. But with this now suddenly new bout of character deletions, I haven't really risked it. Not to mention everyone I've been playing games with doesn't have characters to play with me anymore. So
right,
I'm just kind of sitting
lost
pretty.
My character.
The character deletion in particular is like just so baffling.
It's
like,
terrifying.
I can understand like having trouble getting started in the game because like even in the first day, like there's a massive influx of people wanting to play the game and their servers just couldn't handle it. But losing your character altogether, like I don't know if I've ever heard of that happening. Just like boop, gone. Like it's so weird that that's a problem.
But again, I think it sort of really highlights potential issues with cloud gaming, and that you have to really be able to trust the cloud. And when you log out of the game, and they say, make sure you're logging out in just the right way, go through the menus, don't just turn off the Xbox, because that could give you some problems. Log out through the menu. But even when people do that and log out the right way, and it says saving your progress, you're just sort of expecting it to do it on its own, and it either isn't, or what is being saved is then later being erased. And I think that's really concerning for a lot of people, myself included.
The thing that I think it's helpful to see, though, is a little bit of justification, again, to fight against Microsoft's push to really throw us into the pit of always online. This was one of the major concerns that everyone had, I think, when Microsoft said, nope, Xbox One's always online. That's just how it is. Get used to it. And we, as the consumers of the world, said, no, thank you. We don't really trust you as a company to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And although this isn't technically Microsoft's work here, I think it still shows
of
SimCity, Diablo, Grand Theft Auto. The infrastructure of the world is not ready yet for us to actually rely on always online.
Now, is it just that, like, I'm not sure where this number came from, but the prediction was that like 2 million people were supposed to log on to Grand Theft Auto in the first day or something like that, or that they expected that many people to be playing it, which is just a massive number of people. Can that account for all of the issues, or is it something else? And even if it can, shouldn't they have been prepared for that? I mean, this is
what I'm saying.
This is the best-selling game in history.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand how they didn't expect the game to sell 13 million units in, 2 days?
Something like that.
Something like that. But even still, you have to expect massive amounts of people to buy the game and to not be prepared for an equally massive number of people to
want to play the
online.
It seems that
it's on.
Right. It seems that the axiom "better safe than sorry" would really
come in handy.
Right. Like, you want to make sure you have more than enough servers ready to handle the load of all of these people trying to log on at one time, as opposed to being short and having to scramble to fix it the week it launches, and having such an awful product launch.
Especially when they have such big plans for GTA Online as well. Like, not just preparing for the immediate influx of players, but like the growth of the online community going forward. You want to prepare for that. You want to just have that stuff ready to go.
Right. I mean, you want to assume that more people are going to start playing online because the service will get better. You're going to keep adding content to this persistent world. I mean, it's baffling that they were so ill prepared for.
Especially since it didn't launch immediately. It took
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah. 2 weeks after.
So I thought, okay, this is their time to
prepare for this.
Prepare. I thought the 2 weeks was to say okay, 13 million people bought the game. Now we have to build around that. How do we accommodate for that? Yeah, exactly.
Would consumers even be, because I of course there's been backlash, but I don't think I haven't seen a ton of people saying fuck Grand Theft Auto because of this.
Yeah,
no one is
I'm done with the series.
Right. I haven't seen any of that, and you see a lot of that online, and I'm sure it exists in some form, but would consumers be as forgiving for a game that wasn't Grand Theft Auto, that wasn't this holy grail,
probably wouldn't be as forgiving, and I think it also helps Grand Theft Auto that this is now the third game that's run into these problems.
It's becoming a trend.
It helps the sting. If SimCity and Diablo hadn't happened before this, maybe we'd be more shocked. Maybe we'd be more scandalized, but
Right.
now it's still incredibly disappointing, and in some ways it's more disappointing, but the downtrodden wartime Londoners, we just kind of keep calm and carry on.
Gotta do it.
Yeah, I mean, SimCity, as far as I'm concerned, had the biggest backlash. Like, just the number of people that were just outraged.
I would agree, but I think
SimCity kept going though too, and also
Yeah, this is true. Yeah.
well, but I think not to get too sidetracked, but I think a portion of that is because you can't play SimCity at all
This is
without
also true.
logging on. Well, it's also true of Diablo. You can't play at all without going through the server.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto, you can still play the single player without needing to be on the
This is
internet.
true.
plenty of stuff to
This is
do
true.
still. So
Right,
it's-
you can still go, mess around the city without being online. That's, that is safe.
I'm sure that helps. I'm sure that helps in like
you
if
have that
if
to
you're
fall back
booted-
on,
if
and I
you're-
have fallen back on it. It's like, oh well, try online. It's not working today. I guess I'll go do single player stuff, and that keeps me occupied.
Mhm.
And it's true for a lot of people, as opposed to these other ones where the entire experience is online through a cloud server. And I think the saddest part of all of this, though, is that it's so easy to see the great potential in Grand Theft Auto Online. Like I wasn't entirely sold on it. I just kind of thought like, oh, these sorts of things will get boring. But I really feel like this could be substantial. Like there's
a
so
lot.
much to do.
There's a lot, and it's already given me so many really wonderful, memorable moments.
Do you want to go into some of them?
I would love to. See, the whole thing is there's like a lack of information about it, and that really drives, I think, a good sense of adventure because, as we were saying before it launched, we really wanted to steal one of the fighter jets. And we had a lot of trouble doing it in single player because that tank is just ruthless.
Yes.
Said if only I had a friend with me, then maybe we could make this work. So we'll see. And then as I'm flying over the place in multiplayer, I couldn't get close enough without actually triggering it, and I wasn't even sure if the fighter jet was there. So I finally just said fuck it, and I got a friend in the helicopter. And I went there and found it at the very last second hiding in a hangar. And so I flew the helicopter, scraping the rotors along the runway, slammed into the hangar. By now we had our 5 stars. Everyone was mobilizing. The tanks had come. We jumped out of the helicopter. My friend was blown away while he was jumping away from the helicopter. I jumped onto the fighter jet, and there was explosions and pandemonium, and I kicked and kicked and kicked, because you apparently don't smash fighter jet doors, you kick them like a badass. Kicked it open and jumped down in before also being blown away myself. And the tanks are just, they have a certain beauty to the explosions that you don't even mind being killed by the tank because it's just such a grand experience. And the whole thing was only a few minutes long, but it made me feel great. And it wasn't even anything that was part of the game. That's not even to say something about saving up money or going through the different levels of assault onslaughts. Just that essential thread of Grand Theft Auto is so accessible that it really is, it's everything we wanted it to be, plus they've added these other things on top of it. So if it worked all the time,
you're effectively planning your own heist at that stage.
Right, and we don't even have the heists yet. This is still a game that's perfectly fun to play. I would sink hours and hours and hours into it. And they still haven't given all the expansions. Like, heists are coming to the online version, and
that's going to be.
I haven't cared yet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you can, like, even just now, like, there is so much that I haven't done yet. Like, I haven't played tennis with someone. I want to play tennis with
I
someone.
tried that, and that was a little annoying because I couldn't play tennis with my friend. Every time I walked into the tennis, it automatically did matchmaking with this random person and took me out of the world I was in. This doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that, but I mean,
something to be said for that. But there's a lot there.
There's like so much to do. Like, and in the multiplayer, I've only been in the city. Like, there's a whole
that's what I was worried. Once I finally
do.
left the city, that's, I think, really where I had a great time. It's one of the really great ideas of things. When you don't know things, it makes it a lot more fun.
When you just
My friend had
stumble upon them.
a bounty set on him by one of the NPCs after he stole their car. and it was for $9,000. And we were driving along on the highway, and he said that, oh my God, it's $9,000. And I brought the car to a complete stop, and he said, I guess you can do it if it'll help. So we let him look at the sunset before I tried to shoot him in the back of the head. And then it ended up not working, because if you get too close to someone in the back of the head, I thought he was going to go out with a glorious...
You headbutt him?
Yeah, I just pistol whipped him to death. And then we found out that it actually will not let you kill your friends for their bounties. But, it's the misinformation. I've said this a lot of times in our podcast. I think not misinformation, they shouldn't lie to you. Well, maybe they should, but lack of information and a certain looseness to the rules is really helpful to creating your own experience.
And I had this realization as I was doing more of the single player as well, is that I think a big issue I've had with open world games in the past is that they sort of throw it all at you at once. So it's like you get through like the tutorial mission, the first opening stages, and then they just say, okay, it's open, go. And you go, what the hell do I do? There's too much, it's overload. That's how I felt in Far Cry 3. There was just too much to do. I had no sense of direction. And I just froze up and couldn't do anything. But Grand Theft Auto eases you into things, especially in the single player. Like this is your first experience in this world, and some things are just turned off for a while because they realize that you need to be sort of gradually opened up to this place because there's just an overwhelming amount of stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to realize, like, okay, I can go to the paint shops or the Los Santos Customs, and I can buy properties, and I can do missions for all of these people, and play tennis, and do yoga, and like all of these other things, but they don't throw it all at you at once, and they don't do it in an overwhelming way. And I think that's really where Grand Theft Auto shines. And it's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's how that's what gives me faith for the online, in that like this is a company that clearly knows what it's doing, and like they wouldn't do this if they didn't have an idea that like, okay, we can make this.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Although I will say there's still a little bit of risk involved because they've never actually made a really comprehensive multiplayer before.
No, never. And
GTA 4 was like that first attempt, and it was fine. It was pretty bare bones, but it was fine.
Simple.
Red Dead was okay. It was fun for a while. It didn't have that lasting...
It expanded some of the modes if you were a fan of those. And then with the Undead Nightmare, they introduced the Horde mode sort of thing with the zombies.
Which was fun, although they still never gave us free mode.
Never gave us free roam with zombies.
In the zombies.
I'm still salty about that.
Yeah,
salty.
GTA 4's multiplayer for me was more fun than Red Dead's. I didn't play Red Dead's all that much. I don't know, maybe just because like it's a city and it's not just open west. Like
it's hard. It's hard to feel.
Hard to feel
gratification about stealing someone's horse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So
yeah, like I think they are great at doing
the world is
everything they do, but they do have to prove themselves a bit with their online shops. They're doing simultaneously well and terribly. So see which way that tips as the weeks go on. All
right, topic number 2 this week is going to be Star Wars games. We'll just start out with our experiences in the past with Star Wars. So, Schupsky, what things have you played in the past? Star Wars games, LucasArts developed or otherwise that that have stuck with you?
Well, gotta start right off the bat with KOTOR. KOTOR is obviously the one that everyone loves, everyone knows and loves. That's like the cherished, whatever word I'm looking for, inserted. I played Rogue Squadron on N64 and GameCube.
Oh,
really,
God, that beautiful game.
I know, really loved that game. It still looks great to this day. We were actually
the original?
No.
The GameCube version.
The GameCube version, actually, like I swear, like Google images Rogue Squadron
to
Rogue Leader.
Yep.
You will be blown away by how good it still looks. I swear to God.
I anticipate being blown by your Google image search.
Yes. Okay. And Empire at War, of course, the real-time strategy game. I really liked that.
Never played that.
Really, really fun. And I've just dabbled in Battlefront. But everyone says it's great.
Battlefront was a lot of fun.
I will say that KOTOR obviously was really important for me because it was my first RPG. I'd never played. In fact, I had an aversion to RPGs before I played KOTOR.
Right.
And KOTOR was the game that showed me
that RPGs
that not controlling your fighting is really okay. You don't have to swing the sword every time you hit X, and that works out just fine. But there is an earlier game, and a game that we don't even have on the list here, and see if I can even remember its name. It's the N64 Shadow something. It's got the Han Solo wannabe, and it doesn't have the Millennium Falcon. It has the Millennium Falcon wannabe character in it, and it was a wonderful, wonderful game. And it's my earliest memory of really enjoying a Star Wars game.
Shadow.
I see it in your faces. I can see it in your faces.
I want to say Shadows of the Empire or something.
Shadows of the Empire.
That sounds right.
Yes, I do believe that.
But I don't know if I ever played that.
Oh.
Okay, well, you look it up. I'm going to. I'll dive into mine. Of course, again, Knights of the Old Republic. God, what a great game. Battlefront, I dabbled as well. Really great. Jedi Knight, the Jedi Knight series, played that on PC and on the GameCube. The original ones are all fantastic. The Star Wars first-person shooter with Kyle Katarn, great series. And then it moved into Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, which was a fantastic game. Had some of the most fun multiplayer I've ever experienced.
That's true. God, throwing Luke off those catwalks.
Throwing Luke off the catwalk and listening to him scream every time.
YouTube didn't exist then, but there would have been a 10-hour video of that. He did.
Well, you know what? We can create it.
We can create that.
Alive to Play, gonna bring that to you guys. The Force Unleashed, I didn't really love it.
Yeah, it wasn't a great game. It was an entertaining game for even 5 minutes. The demo was really everything you needed about Force Unleashed.
Yeah, I will.
Unless you're really into the story. But
of course, I mean, you guys played it. I didn't play the Old Republic, the MMO.
Well,
I've never played.
I played a little bit of it,
and you didn't play.
I've never.
I was part of the beta, and then I
thought you guys had it. I thought I saw it.
Oh no!
Somewhere.
No.
Really?
Yeah. No.
For the record, it was Shadows of the Empire. Came out in 1996. Was used to prepare the public for the re-release of the original trilogy in theaters.
Oh yeah, okay. What sort of was it?
It was a multimedia project. Yes, and it was a first-person shooter.
Oh, really?
For most of the time, I think. Right? Could you change? No,
I don't know.
I think it was mostly just a first-person shooter.
I'm pretty sure because I had a PC bundle pack. That
it was one of the first games available for the N64.
Oh, was it only for N64?
It was a PC version that was released in 1997. Dash Rendar, that was his name.
Oh, yes.
He's in the Battle of Hoth, and then you have to do some flying
Dash
shit.
Rendar.
Oh yeah.
What an awful name. Awesome. So, and then of course, right, the Old Republic, the MMO hasn't done so well, but what I played, I enjoyed. I think the issue is I do kind of still have an aversion to MMOs. I'm just not a huge fan of them. But it felt enough like KOTOR that I sort of, jumped on that and clung to it. And then Josh, you and I played episode 3. Those lightsaber battles.
Those were the best
beautiful
lightsaber
battles. I still have a copy for the original Xbox sitting in my room. It's just wonderful, and maybe I'll go play it later because I can. So reviewing all of those, we actually went through the list and looked up how many of those were developed by LucasArts and how many of those were just published by them. And we're honestly a little surprised.
Yeah, the answer may surprise you.
LucasArts hasn't really developed most of those games. They were the publisher, of course, of all of the Star Wars titles, but all the production work was outsourced to other studios.
Yeah, especially starting in the early 2000s. That was like
the earlier games they made in-house, but after that they sort of just funneled them out to other studios. And so that brings us to 1313, Star Wars 1313, that beautiful thing that we saw at E3 2012 that is no longer in production.
Was it just 2012? I thought it was 2011. Or was it 2012?
I think it was just 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what we saw then was, of course, that wonderful trailer that looked just unbelievably
Amazing.
good.
Yeah.
And it was about a bounty hunter. What we didn't know, and this was from a Kotaku article, they had some kind of exclusive. Apparently, the bounty hunter was changed 8 weeks before to be Boba Fett, but they couldn't talk about it then at the E3 event because they hadn't actually changed any of it at that point. So, and this was a sort of like a decree from on high. George Lucas just sort of decided this, and made it so. But 1313 looked so good, and it really excited me for another Star Wars game in a way that I hadn't been excited in a long time. I just thought, like, what did you guys think about 1313? What are your thoughts now that it doesn't exist anymore? Where can that go in the future?
I think it's a shame that it doesn't exist because it was so. One, I mean, it looked really beautiful. It was one of our early. They didn't tell us that it was next gen, although it was.
Oh yeah,
a next gen game.
Right.
It might have been was it the first next gen game that got
Like,
a wide reveal
like
that we saw?
that
And they
and
said
Watch
this is
Dogs.
gameplay.
That and Watch Dogs.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
You kind of saw
Right
it,
on
you
the
went-
360,
you went like-
right?
You went, holy shit, that
Immediately, you were
that
like,
cannot be
Yeah.
on current gen, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and-
what you thought.
And I also think the gameplay that they did show, it looked nice and smooth. It looked like something that it was like a solid Star Wars game that we
People were comparing it to Uncharted.
Yeah.
haven't had.
I mean, having played the Uncharted series now, like it looked a lot like Uncharted, and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
yeah, of course.
Anyways, yeah, but I would say it's just really disappointing because, I mean, until I had read that Kotaku article and I didn't know how bungled the development of that game was,
Yeah.
it's a shame because like that E3 demo showed how much work they had done on it, and like just to have it get the axe is like so like disappointing because like there were clearly a lot of people on that development team that felt really strongly about this game.
Well, it showed them the quality of the work.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, even like they just had to show that that demo. Even after they had changed to Boba Fett, they just like had to, like even after all of that indecision and all of the indecisiveness to have this amazing demo showed before us. It's like disappointing that it just Disney came in and cut it down. But getting like that brings up another interesting point. It's like it's kind of been LucasArts' problem of indecision. Kotaku went even more into this. Like, it's been a problem for years in terms of indecisiveness and just bad decision making from starting from the top with this company. And so when Disney bought Star Wars and came in and said, "What are you doing with this project?" and like they just had this bungled mess of like, well, we kind of think it's this, but we don't know. Now it's going to be Boba Fett. Disney probably just said, well, if you don't know what it is, like, you're done.
It's
You know?
true.
I mean, that makes
Disney
sense.
will be the country to come in and streamline and say, well, no, that would be their strength.
Yeah. And so it also makes you wonder about what's going to happen in future titles because Disney is all about milking the IPs they own for everything they've
Mhm.
got.
Yeah.
And so if there's a way to make a Star Wars game that will sell,
They will do it.
Disney will do it.
Yeah. We talked about this before. Like,
But what will that game be?
we talked about this before. I think definitely Lego Star Wars will be another
Oh yeah,
game.
Lego Star Wars continues to be a
It
solid
continues to be a
franchise.
solid franchise. That will be. But like in terms of real games,
Right, games that like real people want to play
I don't know.
because children are not real people.
Right.
Let the record show.
The record is clear here.
I don't know. Like in terms of like another 1313. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's
I
not
can't-
it's not looking good.
It's murky right now. Like, because
Right.
what does Disney want from this franchise? Like, they know people will see the movies. They know people will watch.
Well, right.
Kid TV shows.
I'm positive we'll see movie tie-in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. But in terms of
Will
like,
they be any good?
but in terms
They
of-
never are. So
right? But in
So-
terms of like standalone games,
A good standalone original story.
standalone original.
We
Another
we
Coke-
may never. There's nothing to
another-
guarantee we
another
could ever
Coke
have
tour.
that again.
Will they say? Will
Right.
they give the go ahead to
right.
another like?
right. Will anyone ever make KOTOR 3? I can't. I
can't.
doubt it.
I just can't see that happening, unfortunately.
I,
But
I want it. Everyone
I
wants
know.
it.
And this is like just kind of going off topic, but like that Old Republic world is just so great to like build off of and like create different stories. Because like that's the whole reason why BioWare said it like thousands of years before. They could just do whatever the fuck they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But Disney knows that thousands of years before doesn't sell. Darth Vader sells.
Doesn't sell Darth Vader and Luke and all of your
Solo,
favorite characters.
All of your favorite pals going on wacky adventures. Like that's what they want for their next video games, most likely.
Yeah.
And in terms of like actual interesting stories, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
like you just don't know.
They will want what sells, and
we do know, however.
Right, we know what we want, but Disney may not comply with our wishes. But potentially good news in the pipeline is a new Battlefront game being made. Angels from on high have visited us.
Yes.
Being made by DICE, the creators of, in I think our mutual opinion, the best military shooter, Battlefield.
No arguments here.
Yeah. I think this bodes very well.
DICE is kind of they've got multiplayer first person shooting down.
They've got it down, and I mean,
pretty well. But I wonder, have they mentioned anything about if they're going to keep the ideas from Battlefront 3 that had been in production before Battlefront 3 was originally axed? Or are they starting
in terms of
this? I don't know.
Because I remember last time that Battlefront 3 was a thing, they were talking about how they wanted to have space battles and ground battles happening at the same time within the same world, that you could fly into the space battle, and then you could say, nope, I'm going to fly down to the planet now.
I mean, I feel like, given the scope that we've seen from Battlefield games, that sounds absolutely like something they would do.
Yeah, totally doable.
Because when you consider the size of like Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 maps,
That's
I mean
true.
that there is absolutely no reason that couldn't transition. Yeah, just fly right up through that stratosphere.
Yeah, especially since like they have until 2015 to work on it.
Oh right.
I mean, this is the other thing. Like we just don't know anything about it. Like you said, they had just bought it 2 weeks before they showed that teaser.
They acquired the rights just before they showed it at
E3.
It was E3 this year.
It was literally like 5 seconds.
Yeah, it was like a 20-second teaser trailer of just the AT-AT foot stomping down on something, and I believe the story is that they acquired the rights to the series like literally weeks before the event. And so, I mean, there has been no production done on this yet. Nothing is there to see. So, yeah, 2015, I guess, is the slated release window. So we have some time to wait for it. But I think, I mean, we'll be looking at Battlefield 5 by that point.
That's
Really.
true.
Yeah.
I mean, if Battlefield is going with a release every 2 years, as it sort of looks like they're doing, at least between 3 and 4 now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then yeah, we'll be looking at another Battlefield game
In conjunction with
Battlefront.
Oh dear.
that'll be interesting.
Choices.
Yeah, right.
Choices.
So to sort of conclude that topic, I mean, I think looking sort of bright. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
There are lights. They may not be the lights we'd hoped for, but
there's something.
There are some lights.
These aren't the lights you're looking for.
These are not the lights we're looking for.
That was bad.
That was really bad, but we'll end there. It's a good closer. All right, so Breaking Bad, Felina, finale episode.
Yep.
The end of all things.
The end of everything. Great.
Yep.
Just someone take it away. Express the pain.
It was a less painful episode than you expected, but that also made it just as surprising and painful as it needed to be. Because really, after Ozymandias, who didn't expect just vicious terror for the finale? And then it really wasn't vicious terror. It was pretty tame. Yeah. There were tense moments, but they were always tense moments that turned out to not be tense moments. So that, in really most ways, is kind of what we needed it to be. And that's where I think it really succeeded as a finale, because it was a really good finale in terms of the story, in that it let you kind of come back to the beginning. It didn't, a lot of people were looking for it to be like a rocket ship. And where the show starts in season 1 and blasts off in orbit,
right?
hits the sun and explodes. And it didn't, and I'm glad it didn't, because it brought itself back into a very, very tight, very traditional, self-contained story. And it couldn't end, and as the musician, as I am, from a compositional standpoint, that is, really necessary. The majority of stories need to come back. You need that recapitulation, because you need to see the journey in comparison with everything else. All of his craziness means so much more to then see the ball like bounce off the floor and reach high and it just kind of come right back down. And it doesn't come all the way back down to where it started.
No.
But it shows you enough of that direction to give you that reminder. A little tail end sentence.
If I could say, get back to the musical, the last 2 episodes in particular felt like the coda to the end.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant. Like symphony, yes.
I like where you're going with that. Technically speaking, it doesn't make sense as a coda, but that's the musical elitist in me. It's a recapitulation. A coda would be something that happens after the recapitulation. A coda would be an epilogue. But yes, what you're saying is,
it is almost an epilogue.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, in terms of the story perspective, it felt like the epilogue of a great story.
Or even the epilogue, or the following, the denouement, if you will, of the Heisenberg story.
Yeah.
Because after the end of the second to last episode, Granite State, right?
Mm-hmm.
I solidly believe that this is not Heisenberg anymore. It's not Heisenberg. It's not Walter White as we knew him in the beginning. This is a third person. This is someone totally different.
Right. Or you could say this is Walter White, the real Walter White.
For sure.
Not this false science teacher that he'd been pretending to be.
Precisely.
He is actually himself. So yeah, I mean, I still don't know if I can get on board with calling it an epilogue per se, but
not in terms of narrative arc, but in terms of the character.
Yeah.
Of Walter White.
Yeah, because like Granite State was all about,
or his meth arc anyway. It's like that is kind of like, it's like when he's in New Hampshire, he's done.
Yeah, he's done.
That's it.
Like
that is the end of him and his empire and his pursuits and his narcissism as well.
Yeah. Right.
He's stripped him of all of his preconceptions of narcissism and power and ego.
Yeah.
Everything is it's
all gone.
Just gone.
And so that when he goes into this last episode, it's just him laid bare, and it provides such a clear picture too, and I think that's such a credit to the writing and to the acting. It's just like that you can see between one episode and the next. This is Walter White with the facade, even just lying to himself about things. Mm-hmm. And then this is Walter White being honest with himself and other people. And the difference is night and day.
Yeah. The greatest moment was with Skylar, when he did say, "I did it for me." Like, that's laid bare to a T. Like, I think that was the first moment he ever
admitted
ever to anyone, even to himself. Like, I did this for myself.
Yeah, I liked it.
I was good at it, and it made me feel alive. Those 3 sentences just perfectly summed up
tears.
Why he did it. Yeah.
The tears.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? I also liked how in Granite State, at the end of Granite State, I actually thought, like you said, a rocket ship. I thought it was just going to reach this apocalyptic end where he was going to rush back to Albuquerque, grab that M60,
Scarface.
mow
into the
down,
end.
mow down the Nazis, mow down Jesse, mow down Skyler, mow down babies and strollers, mow down old people. Anyone he could take out with him, he was going to do it. But that's not really what happened. He just kind of quietly sauntered into town. It's all weak and decrepit looking, and he used that to his advantage.
Absolutely.
Like when he showed up to Lydia and Todd in the restaurant, they don't take him seriously. They think he's just a weak old man, and he uses that to get the upper hand.
And I think that's an interesting another way that they really tied it back into the first season, into like, you know, those fuck yeah science moments. Like Walter White is really a crafty guy, and he uses his analytical skills to his advantage.
Yeah, and that's when it makes you realize like it wouldn't make sense for him to go out Scarface style. That's not
him. That would be the rocket ship. But
Mhm.
this is not that kind of story. Yeah. This is not a story that goes and then never stops. Yeah. This is a traditional story.
Yeah. To me, like the rocket ship analogy, like we got, like you said, we got the big explosion with Ozymandias. We got the big kaboom. Like everything comes crashing down. Like that was the moment we've really all been waiting for, like for this 5-season arc. And then all that was left was to tie up these crucial last loose ends and like have.
But it was also essential for the character.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It was also perfectly like way to just contemplate on just how far the character has come from where he started off. Like it was amazing to see, like like you said, the performance and like the difference in the performance in terms of like how laid bare he is. It was great.
I think it's an interesting way to structure the show in general as well, is that you have the conclusion of all like the big narrative arcs a couple episodes before the end of the show. I mean, of course, you have the skinhead thing, but the Aryan Brotherhood, whatever. But they weren't posing a direct threat necessarily to anyone. I mean, Skylar was kind of just going about her life more or less, and Walt was happy in a cabin, not happy, but alive.
He had Mr. McGorians.
Two copies of Mr. McGorian.
And a lot of money. And so it's like, in terms of like things that we as the viewer would be concerned about, their safety as humans. No one was directly threatening them. They were all just kind of doing it.
Story could have ended right there.
Yeah, right. That could have been the end. But the character, they needed those last couple of episodes to tie up the characters, and I think that really shows where the focus was on the show, which was always laser focus on the characters.
Yep. And Breaking Bad is nothing if not like strictly devoted to that one central story, and it just drives everything around it. And
absolutely.
And like it just stayed true. Like that's why I like.
There's not a single plot thread
that doesn't
in the finale that was not directly a result of Walter White's actions. Yeah, and I think that's just brilliant. I mean, it's like this is something that will be looked at for so long. It's like the perfect example of like this is how you do a story right. It's just so good.
Yeah, you keep it focused on the one thing that matters, and like just don't deviate. They never deviated. They never expanded ballooned the story out too big.
Right.
And even when they did, they always brought it back around.
It was always related. It was always stuff that you needed to know.
Even things that you initially said, like, well, what the fuck are they showing this for? It just showed you that Vince Gilligan was 10 steps ahead of you. When, like, 2 episodes down the road, you're like, oh, that's what.
Oh, right. Yep. Yeah. Now, I think on the flip side, I think it's important to mention that Jesse was kind of sparse in the finale. Didn't get much with Jesse. Slate actually posted the picture of his entire script for the last episode, which consisted of 1 page. That was it. Like we saw him like twice, and this meth slave, and then chokes Todd, and then he's driving away.
He's out of here,
and that's it. He says like 2 lines for the entire episode, and in a way, my initial reaction was like, oh man, I really wanted more Jesse there. I wanted to tie up that story a bit more. But then the more I thought about it, I thought that no, this is and always has been Walter White's story.
Yeah, every second you give to Jesse is a second you take away from Walter White.
Walt, and we needed all of that time with Walt.
Yeah.
And we can make safe assumptions about what Jesse will do and how he will live on, and all of these other things. And when it comes down to it, that's not the important part. When it comes down to it, it's about Walter White.
Right. I think most people were salty just because people
Salt tonight.
We're all salty.
People like as the show progressed, they became less sympathetic towards Walt and more sympathetic towards Jesse, which is a natural thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of people falsely started to view Jesse as the protagonist,
right?
And that is not the case at all.
No.
Like you said, everything in the story is a direct result of Walter White's actions, and that's important. That needs to be stipulated. I do think Jesse had a decent, he did have a moment where he had the only what's the moment where he's putting together the box.
The box.
I think that's the only moment where Breaking Bad had a vision episode, a scene where it happens inside the character's mind almost. Well, he did actually,
in a sense, but that is the thing that happened.
That is a thing
flashback.
And that is a thing that happened, and I do think that's flashback more than. But I do think it's a visual representation of how Jesse is coping with being a meth slave. But I thought that was an incredibly
that was powerful. That was
powerful.
Moving.
And it just shows you even with that sparse moment, you can still feel that much for Jesse. Just 20, and then not even a word of dialogue. And
right.
I do like that he didn't get. I do like the way he ended. He's just free. He's scot-free. He's gone from Walter White's clutches. He doesn't have his money, which was causing Jesse so much turmoil in the early going of this season.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't kill. He didn't kill again. I like that he didn't kill Walter White. It's he said, I'm done killing for you, and that just means I'm not going to kill you. Yeah. So in a way,
he's done. He's finally able. He's in a position to just act on his own will and just go for it.
Yeah, I think
he can do whatever he wants. This is the
first moment since the pilot that he's not under Walter White's
anyone's control.
Anyone's control,
right?
Yeah.
Because even when he's not under Walt's control, he's being manipulated by Gus or by Hank. Or by the Aryans who are enslaving him and very physically forcing them to do their will.
Yeah.
But right, Jesse has always sort of been the pawn forced into these situations, and we finally see him
free.
Being free, and he just laughs and cries. And looks sad.
Looks little crazy,
a little insane, but I think we all would be.
Which is understandable, but he's out, he's free. But I'd say more than anything, the finale just made me want to go back and watch the series all over again.
Just
because it ended perfectly. It's wow, that was amazing. It was an amazing story.
Yeah. I think I mentioned that we talked about that on Xbox Live. How a finale like that brings it back around does encourage rewatching because it creates a product,
closes
a whole, and as we've said, a completely self-contained story that it would be harder to watch it again if it was just the rocket ship. Yeah. If everything starts out nicely and just disintegrates, I don't think that's as satisfying to watch again as knowing where you're going, as seeing the beginning and seeing the end. That's something that's more easy to digest.
Well,
so
I think
from a business standpoint, I suppose it gives the series longevity.
I think you can also compare it to Battlestar Galactica and the fact that Battlestar Galactica was literally and figuratively the rocket ship.
Mm-hmm.
It got big and big and big, and then the finale just became this metaphysical sort of nonsense stuff, and you were kind of left.
They were juggling too many things.
Well, right, it ballooned to be too big. The seasons had too many episodes. That's a different topic entirely, but too much. Too little content spread over too many episodes. But the bigger issue just being that the main arc got too big and just did nothing but climb and never came back around to being
The simple-
these characters
Yeah.
on a ship interacting with each other.
Yeah.
Which is, when Battlestar really shines. Season 1 is phenomenal because it's just that.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns into this really big, again, metaphysical, like, God mate with these proto-humans and make
Yeah.
other humans, and then 100,000 years later, it's New York City, but the Cylon people are still there. It's just...
It's a lot.
It's
Yeah.
just so much, and it takes it to another place that's like, well, but I don't care about that. I care about the characters. I want to know about the characters.
Right. As much as I
it's
enjoyed,
sacrificed.
as much as I enjoyed Battlestar, I have not yet, after 5 years,
5 years.
gone back to watch it
to
again.
watch it all again. Yeah, right.
As much as I
Because-
think, well, that might be nice. It's just there's something that's a little less satisfying about it.
Right.
Knowing, because when you enjoy that first season so much, what do you have to look forward to? I mean, that's it's the basis of storytelling, is having a journey. But when the journey is just
Takes you to someplace crazy.
does
and
it ever end?
doesn't harken back.
Does it feel right? Does it become anything? And yeah,
I think
it
that's why
hurts in the long run.
doing a finale right is so important in that.
And
regard.
it's a shame because bad finales can
ruin
I
shows.
wouldn't, yeah,
I mean,
and like
it doesn't take away
I like
from the
I like
best
to not
parts,
yeah.
but it hurts it as a whole.
I know. I like to not think that way because, I always like to think it's more about the journey and not about the destination. But it is true that a bad finale does leave a sour taste in your mouth, and it really just says, it doesn't make you want to go back and revisit this story that you
Right. Well, because where it's going is not a satisfying place.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
And so you say, well, all these characters,
All these
for
wonderful
naught.
feelings are never going to come back.
right.
You can just enjoy them now. And it's not it's not you can't make good art doing that. It's just a different kind of art. There is a place for stories that explode and become crazy, but they're in that art film world. The kind of thing you watch once and say, "Oh, that was eye-opening."
Mm-hmm.
And as beautiful and wonderful as they can be, they don't hold the same place inside your...
And I think
life.
it's important when we're talking about episodic narrative as well to distinguish between shows like Battlestar that are almost melodrama. That
Mhm.
you just you have, they're soap opera in space. Very much.
Yeah.
It's what are the characters up to this week? Who's sleeping with who and who's mad at who and what's doing the thing and. Breaking Bad is in no way like that. Breaking Bad is such a
Really unique.
honed down
Yeah.
story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It really, really focuses on narrative and less
Mhm.
about the quote drama.
In terms of escalation, Breaking Bad always balanced that idea of the story was always it was always about Walter White's, at least in the first 4 seasons, his ascension towards drug kingpin. But it never felt, well, it did feel like a rocket ship, but it I'm trying to say here, it wrapped it around in a satisfying way in terms of season 5 at the end, the way it brought it back around to the bare bones necessities of the show itself, just the character, stripping the character down and revealing him after his glorious ascension to drug kingpin, and then Pinkman. His glorious ascension to Kingpin, and then his rapid downfall to a lone man in a cabin in New Hampshire. And then even at the end of that, it wrapped it back around to who this character is, as a person,
Mhm.
and it never lost track of keeping Walter White. I will say I was always with Walter White throughout the entire story. I didn't always root for him. I didn't always sympathize with him, but I was always with him. I understood his decisions, his choices, and why he did things, and that was essential to the character, to the show. Even that's the most amazing thing to me. They took this not good character, but flawed character, made him awful, but still made the show completely watchable. You still wanted to watch the show, even though you came to really despise this horrible person.
Yeah, it's well, why are you doing this to all of these people that you profess to love?
Mm-hmm. And yet, most shows where I start hating the characters, I stop watching. But I never stopped watching Breaking Bad. I always
Well,
watched
because
it.
you're hating the characters. Actually, you're not hating the character.
Right.
Right.
You're saying you're a
yeah.
despicable person, but you're so well written
I
that I
know.
have to keep watching.
I know he's such a compelling character. Like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, and then that's like that for me is the lasting legacy of the show. And then like you kept watching it even though this man was just dragged lower and lower and lower.
Yeah. Well, let's just touch on legacy briefly. It's what can top this? I mean, I think we've all kind of understood that Breaking Bad really is like the perfect drama for a while now,
Going
and
forward now, yeah.
and I'm through season 5 that has persisted. It really is. I can't think of a single thing that I would change.
Right. And another amazing thing is it got better and better and better with each season, which is definitely not the case with a lot of shows. Battlestar in particular.
Oh yeah, they have good seasons and bad seasons, and really good episodes and really bad episodes.
Yeah, it's consistent quality from beginning to end, which is like amazing. It's the most consistent like quality show I think I've ever watched. I can't name an episode where like I said that was a complete waste of time, or like that was stupid. I hated that, or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's astounding. Like I don't see how I could watch a show again where I feel that way.
Unless you just have a really, really talented creative team behind it.
Yeah.
Like they did with Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
So Vince Gilligan and Michael Slovis.
Yeah, and that's the one thing Vince Gilligan did more than anything was surround himself with these incredibly talented people and just said, just do your thing.
Right, and even all the directors, Michelle McLaren.
Ryan Johnson was a stand-in, but they had a few go-to directors. I wish I knew their names, but Michelle McLaren first and foremost,
right?
Like directed some of the most amazing episodes. Michael Slovis obviously gave the show its signature look, an amazing look.
Yeah, starting in season 2.
The writers, I think the writing team had been with the show since season 2, so these were people that knew the story inside and out. They didn't have a really like musical chairs writing staff of people just shuffling in and out. This was like the same core group of people that knew the story. And how could you have a better writing staff to,
clearly
guide the show? And then, of course, we can't talk about the people involved without talking about Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, and the entire cast.
Right. I mean, the entire cast is fantastic. I mean, Bryan Cranston, I think just... I mean, Josh, you said you saw him on...
I saw him on 30 Rock.
On 30 Rock.
As I'm finally going through and watching season 7 of 30 Rock, and he comes in as Kenneth Parcells' stepfather, and he's perfect. He wears flannel, and he puts on that Stone Mountain accent, and he's perfect, and he's so happy, and just... trying to picture him doing that bottom teeth glare that he's got. But he's like an American Daniel Day-Lewis, I swear.
He really is.
He really is.
I also did watch his voiceovers for Power Rangers. They're pretty great.
Yeah.
They're pretty great.
He
has 2 separate monsters in the original Power Rangers.
Yes, that's where he.
Rangers! It's so glorious. It's so glorious.
That was his big.
And the Preparation H commercial.
Oh yes.
Oh, yes. I didn't see that.
Who could forget the Preparation H?
Who could? I bet he'd like to.
But he's like the most.
He's so versatile.
He's the most unlikely Daniel Day-Lewis in that, like, he started off in these
comedy roles,
bit comedic roles in Seinfeld and Malcolm in the Middle and Power Rangers and Preparation H, and somehow that
somehow that transferred to like this brilliant. Like angry, deep, depressing character.
And kudos to Vince Gilligan for seeing it in like Bryan Cranston, where obviously no one else saw this guy as
who could. I mean, I just feel no one would make that.
This is true.
Assumption.
It's a very big gamble, and did it pay off in a big way. Like, honestly, could you imagine another actor portraying Walter White? It'd be impossible.
No, I just can't.
He's
just perfect.
Little fun fact: did you know that John Cusack was originally going to play Walter White? Could you imagine a bald, goatee John Cusack running around in a meth? RV
I can. I would giggle, but I can.
In his underwear. yeah, like just amazing. And I don't know what he's going to do after this, but I'm sure he's got shit lined up.
I'm sure
At the moment.
everybody wants him, and they are going to pay handsomely for it.
Yeah.
So, kudos to Bryan Cranston and
Yes.
everyone else involved.
Oh yes, job well done.
We've got Need for Speed to look forward to with Aaron.
With
Paul.
Aaron
Yes,
Paul, of
yes. God,
Great.
set,
Really
set, your
using-
set your calendars, folks. Set your calendars.
So that'll wrap it up for this week. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/alive2play. Our Twitter feed is @alive2play. You can comment on our Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like our video. You can like it as well and comment on it. For Mike Schupsky and Josh Hartman, I'm Mike Rifenbury. Have a great week.